Today we will be discussing about analogy. I would like to start with a little story. So once upon a time, a man went to buy a pack of cigarettes in the grocery store. And after he bought this pack of cigarettes, he started to smoke in the store right away. But the shopkeeper said, "You cannot smoke here." And the man was annoyed by that. And he said, "If you sell cigarettes here, that means I can smoke in the store." But the shopkeeper says, "We also sell toilet paper here. Would you wipe your ass in the store as well?" So in that funny little story, the shopkeeper himself might not have noticed that he's using a debate technique called analogy. So this video is about why analogy is important and how we can utilize it in our own speeches. So first of all, why analogy is so important. When you raise a claim or a contention or whatever you call it, you need an example to support your claim, which will make your claim powerful and concrete. Because if you only explain it by concepts or logic, it will make the claim too abstract to understand. And sometimes the example that you provide is an analogy in some form. So back to our story between the client and the shopkeeper. The client is making a claim based on his assumption that if the grocery store sells cigarettes, he is allowed to smoke in the grocery store. That is actually not true logically. And what the shopkeeper is saying is that not everything sells in the store can be used inside the store. The shopkeeper didn't point out the logical flaw in the client's claim right away. Instead, he explains with the toilet paper scenario, which is obvious to everyone that you shouldn't wipe your ass in the grocery store. It is so obvious that you don't need any extra explanations to your audience, and everyone's gonna understand what your point is. So in the second part of the video, we will try to use analogy in our own speeches. So one of the most famous debate topic is that whether euthanasia should be legalized. So oftentimes side opposition will have a claim that says euthanasia should not be legalized because legalizing euthanasia is encouraging people to commit suicide. So side affirmative can use analogy to refute side opposition by saying that after you reach the age of 21, the law grants you freedom to drink excessively all day every day. But it doesn't mean that the law encourages you to drink all day every day. So in this case, side affirmative uses analogy to explain what is called non-crime doesn't equal to encouragement. So here's another example. And I actually used this analogy during my first year of doing debate in my high school. So the motion is, this house will ban genetic modification on wild animals. Side negative made a claim in that debate saying that by using genetic modification on endangered animals, the endangered animals will fit better into the environment. The analogy that I raised as a counterargument is the story that the state agent of Arizona wanted to reduce the number of wolves in order to protect the deer in the forest. However, after they killed most of the wolves in the forest, the deer lost their predators, and their number started to increase drastically. The deer finally ate up all the plants in the forest and destroyed the entire ecosystem. So in this analogy, I supported my point that since nature is more complicated than what people imagine, making big changes to species will cause irreversible and unpredictable damage to the ecosystem, and thus side opposition should not use the genetic modification and grant unfair advantages for the wild animals who were in danger. However, in the later videos, I'll explain why this specific example, this specific analogy that I bring up is not a good way of using analogy, and it's not a good way to win this debate.